Next on Meet the Farmer TV, we talk with two plaintiffs in a lawsuit against Monsanto.
The companies that have these patents on our food have had, over 20 years to make billions of dollars that they can throw at anything we do to try to change the situation. And the only way it's going to be is going to be something like in the civil rights movement.
This program is a production of Meet the Farmer TV, LLC, in association with Planet Earth Diversified, Melly Productions, and Leslie P. Jenkins Photography and Graphic Design. So here we are. We're going to talk to a couple plaintiffs in the Monsanto lawsuit. So Ira, I know you from the Seed Exchange, but how did you get started in this court case?
Well, Southern Exposure Seed Exchange, we were approached about joining in this lawsuit against Monsanto. And we've been, raising the issue of transgenics and how it affects us because we're a seed company where we're at risk of having contamination. And this lawsuit came along and it seemed like the right thing to do to become a part of trying to stand up against Monsanto. And it also gives us an opportunity to educate as many people as we can in the public about the dangers to our health, to the purity of our food system, to our seeds, by joining in with all of these other seed companies and consumers and farmers and saying no to GMO.
So your customers actually want you to tell them that the seeds they get from you are guaranteed not to be transgenic.
They absolutely care, and we do things like testing, having guidelines about how far you have to be from other farms that are producing the type of seed to try as much as we can to offer a guarantee to our customers that they're going to get pure seed from us.
And this is Southern Exposure Seed Exchange.
That's us, Southern Exposure Seed Exchange.
Is there a website?
southernexposure.com. Come there. We have lots of information about the lawsuit, about growing food, and all the things that are going on to support that kind of activity in our region. Our growers, we have protocols for not being contaminated. And then, in order to follow up on that, we have to do testing to make sure we didn't get accidental contamination. And we had a case. It actually wasn't a crop that we were getting for ourselves, but we were helping another seed company with one of our growers to grow something for them. And they're a mile from anybody who's growing GM corn. And they had one lot that tested positive for GMOs. And this just makes you think, oh my goodness, we have to even take more precautions, against this. And if those neighbors' cows had come in and eaten your crop, you could, get some kind of judgment in court, and they would have to pay or repair their fences or do something. But, another thing that's going on is not so much directly about this lawsuit, but I also am on the board of the Organic Seed Alliance, and that organization has been involved in the Willamette Valley in Oregon, where most of the organic beet and chard seed is produced, with fighting Monsanto wanting to grow that crop there, their GMO sugar beets, when they know that pollen travels for 5 miles. Just these big clouds of pollen at the time. And
what crop?
Beets. They're talking about GMO sugar beets, which cross with chard, and this is like one of the only places that a large amount of organic seed is produced in the country. And they've been growing this GMO stuff somewhere else before, but they decided they need to grow it there, and it's like a big fight. People, like in the counties are trying to knock them out. They're taking people to court, and they have a lot of money. And this is how they beat farmers down. They take you to court about any nonsense, and they just use up all your money until you just fall over and roll over.
Well, that was the concern I expressed to Senator Kaine, is like, if we don't have some protection, you're telling me, well, don't worry about whether it's labeled genetically modified or not. You can label yours as organic or label it however you want, and then you have a special label, and if people are looking for it, they can get that. But my concern is, how do I protect myself from a Monsanto or someone that has a gene patent saying that my crop contains that? They've got the money to run the DNA test. I don't. And they could easily just run their test and know that the pollen is there. And I would get $1,100 per instance state fine for every time I claimed it wasn't and it got contaminated.
They want to, instead of having zero tolerance, along with that, have some percentage of GMO contamination that is acceptable.
Right. Like the filth standards, there's a certain percentage of filth that can be in food and it's okay. So GMO just becomes a filth component.
Yeah, and if you have a small amount of contamination and you keep growing that seed, you can inadvertently increase the amount of contamination.
Well, now I just
quickly.
heard in Hawaii, especially the Big Island, they're really big organic growers there. They've got a pretty nice environment, and they're isolated.
Right.
And they're trying so desperately to grow their own food because they import 85%, and it's very expensive.
Yeah.
But Monsanto's buying thousands of acres.
They want the isolation and they want the climate. I'm telling you, the Willamette Valley, Hawaii, the climate is great. I mean, you can grow seed here in Virginia, but one reason we have some growers who are like in Oregon is certain crops we can grow and we can get seed, and if you're saving a little bit for yourself, that's fine. But for the same amount of effort, they can get 8 times as much seed with less problems, with any, funguses and stuff attacking it because of the time.
We see that in everything. Why all the salad comes from the Salinas Valley.
And so
California.
Monsanto wants to take over and have control of most of these prime seed growing regions. And actually, mostly they're not growing GMOs at this point because they own so many non-GMO varieties that, of course, people should pay attention to which varieties come from Monsanto so that they're not spending their hard-earned dollars supporting it, because they bought lots of conventional seed companies.
How do you know? If I buy a pack of seeds, how do I know?
Well,
without running a DNA test.
Well, one thing that you can do is Fedco Seeds has put up a list of varieties that are commonly available that Monsanto owns. The
GMO as well as non-modified.
Yeah, and these are their list is primarily not conventional seeds that Monsanto owns. We've thought of it, we just haven't quite got the resources to get all of that and keep it up to date, because people buy and sell companies a lot. And the other thing is, most of these older varieties that they have actually have just regular PVP patents, which will expire shortly. And like one of the things we do with those conventional varieties is hold on to some seed, and then when that patent expires, offer some organic seed of it.
Now, do the patents expire on GMO material?
No! Well, they do someday, 50 years.
Well,
Why are they different?
Because they're made for screens and hardware.
For practical purposes, they're not expiring because they change the traits slightly and get a new patent. And so
and they take the old one off the market 5 or 6 years before the patent expires, too, so that people who are into transgenics cannot save back seed in any substantial quantity long enough to use the old trait. Not that we would want to ourselves, but even someone who would want to would have trouble, because these are field crops. Look at that thing, the back of the packet of those, just for fun. Go into, a regular farmer seed place and pick up a packet of this. This is by opening this packet, you agree, to give your
that's how you know when it's really modified, because there's a EULA on there.
But you can also tell about seeds that are not GMO that they control, because they're starting to put that on farmer quantities of the conventional seeds that they are selling as well, because I think they have plans in the future.
Well, there you have it, the reason why we need to really be watching transgenic material. And stay tuned next week for more about this court case and this attempt of 83 plaintiffs to try to stop the ownership of plant genes. Well, now in the 80s, the late 80s, before Virginia did the 1990 Virginia Food Act, which we
Right.
campaigned vehemently for, thinking it was going to protect us from all of this,
Right.
Monsanto came to us in the organic certification, quoting Rachel Carson, that we can make the plants have their own insecticides so your organic growers won't have to use them. And we were like, no. And I mean, they offered money. They were going to pay for the whole organic certification program and greatly support it, as long as when we wrote the regulations that modified materials were no different than Gregel Mendel crossing peas, and that plants that were developed to be resistant against diseases and insects were automatically organic because there was no applied herbicides, pesticides, fungicides. And I think
Talk about
that,
a Trojan horse, huh?
yeah, it was, well, it alarmed a lot of us, but we didn't really understand what was going on. But it was their genuine belief. And I recently heard something on NPR where Rachel Carson retracted some of that stuff that she had said. Like, it seemed like a really good idea that we'd breed plants that made their own pesticides and therefore we wouldn't have to apply them. And certainly that's better than DDT, but it's not. Toward the end of her life, she was like, whoa, wait a minute, this is not going the right direction. Right now, corn is really high.
Yeah.
And corn is being grown all across the United States.
Yep.
And
Most
huge,
of it for animal feed and
right,
biofuel.
or fuel.
Yeah.
And those farmers are making money on that.
Yeah.
And there is no way that you can get them to grow non-GMO corn.
Right.
Oh, right.
Because they're gonna
Here's
just
the thing, but
plant that once.
Let me tell you some good news, maybe, is any number of people, including right here in Virginia, Cliff Slade at Virginia State is showing farmers who can take 2 acres intensively planted with food crops that are not commodity crops and get the same profit that they would growing 50 and sometimes 100
what is
acres.
42, 580?
Yeah. This is something that I know for a number of our growers, our seed growers, who were not organic, or some of them were, who, actually went through the 3 years to become organic, and they are still making a good amount of money from their 2 or 3 acres.
Phenomenal investment. It's very different financial plan than the guy that's making money on the ethanol corn now. They can just pay somebody one time to drill it or plant it in with the chemicals right in the ground and then come back and harvest it. The people that are really doing the seed saving and the organic growing, they're investing all the time. And the whole season they're monitoring stuff and they're doing a lot of hand work, they're composting and adding materials. And I'm not, and that doesn't show up when you walk into Whole Foods and you see the carrots grown in the desert in Israel and the carrots grown here in Virginia. The amount of effort that's different between the two doesn't show up. But what happens is one guy survives because he makes enough money, the other guy fades away. And that's what I'm worried about. What you're saying with the genetically modified is they create a financial system that whether we win fighting or not, we all fade away because none of us survive long enough for our kids to keep doing saving seed.
The whole point of making a new food system is to get farmers who are farming for other reasons and get consumers who know that food is not cheap, that they're going to have to, if we want to have a sustainable system, we're going to have to choose to spend our money on pay the real cost of food and consider that good. I mean, we spend a lot of money on food in restaurants. If we get real food and and cook that food, if we in our restaurants look to have fresh local produce as a value that we appreciate in the meals that we get, that's how we can have it. I mean, I've spent time in Europe. Food is not cheap in Europe. It just isn't. And that's why having organic food is not such a deal there, because food, period, is not cheap. Because it's important to grow food locally, to have a system where you can feed yourself. We didn't happen to live through the Second World War, where there was no food that was brought in.
If you didn't know how to grow it,
and you were up
and
a creek without a paddle.
So this is sort of the kingpin for their financial success and their ability to dominate.
Yeah.
Is to be able to own this and apply these triple damages to anyone who
Right.
possesses it that they didn't give
Yeah.
a license
And
to
they-
possess.
Yeah, and they don't have. They mostly don't. Now they said this in court. They don't sue that many people, but they take so many people. They threaten to sue them
You scare
and
them.
settle out of court that person is going to stop talking about it. 10 times the number of people that they take to court, they do that, and so they just quiet them down, so you don't hear a word about what they said. They promised they were never going to talk to anybody about this.
So what you want to try to do is get the same sort of thing for plants.
Absolutely.
Bingo.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
So we
And,
said this for
yeah,
humans, now we need to say it for our food.
Yes, and we right now, unfortunately, the companies that have these patents on our food have had, over 20 years to make billions of dollars that they can throw at anything we do to try to change the situation. And the only way it's going to be is going to be something like in the civil rights movement, where you have millions of people standing up and speaking their voices, speaking with their money, because these companies have more money than any small group of us ever hope to have.
So how do we get the general public? Well, we still experience this in the markets, in the fresh farm markets. The
Right.
general public comes, they still are looking for the cheapest price. What's your price on tomatoes? What's your price on sweet corn? They might ask you, are you organic or do you use GMO or something? They might ask it cursory, but they are really looking at the price. And if the guy down here has got 5 ears for $1 and mine's 3 ears for $1, even
Yeah.
if his is Roundup Ready, they're going to go for that.
Well,
and
they
if
don't
I
even
if I
know how
cook
it's
it,
grown. They're not
if
even.
I cook it and give it to them with some butter, they'll pay me $2 for it. And so, and we'll see this at the Harvest
Yeah.
Festival. It'll all be prepared food. Nobody
Absolutely.
will take home fresh food.
Yeah.
And on most of our markets now, 80% of the vendors are cooking things and selling somebody something for $5 to $10, but they don't want to give me $1 for a handful of peppers and
Yeah.
take it home and cook themselves. So
Yeah, well,
that's financial
education
pressure.
is the deal.
Nobody has any time.
Well, what I think
Our lives
is
are so
important
pressure, they don't
is
have time
to
to
work with
cook.
schools. I mean, what we do at Southern Exposure is we spend a lot of our resources on education. We work with school groups, we work with 4-H groups, we work with food pantries, and all of these kinds of places that are giving people the idea that you can make a difference in your life, in the life of your family, by taking the time. The gift that you can give them is fresh, home cooked, high quality food.
That seems to me to be the real key. Even if you pull the kingpin out of Monsanto, they don't have this right to sue. They don't have this ability to own a patent and profit by it. We still have a general public that doesn't know how to feed themselves and doesn't know how they can balance their time budget and cook food or
Right.
grow food, and still is we've got that Walmart mentality. where it's
Absolutely.
lower prices, buy cheaper, live better, and
Yeah.
sorry about the Chinese
Yeah,
kills
and
we killed,
we need to educate, and we also need to do research about how things work. If somebody like myself, I deal with being overweight. There are many studies about overweight women. If you're eating well in other ways, you don't end up with high blood pressure or diabetes or things which other people in my family died from that I don't have, you know, I mean, and I may never, you know, stay thin, you know, but
So we start
eating
looking
good
at food as medicine.
It absolutely is.
Preventative medicine is good food.
And there are programs now where they give double benefits for food stamps if you spend it at a farmer's market.
Yep.
And the ones that are robust have shown, you know, decreases in diabetes and high blood pressure in particular, which are quite expensive to the state for 4 people, of 10% or more in like 2 years.
So there's really a public benefit to, instead of subsidizing the corporations that are suing the farmers trying to grow things, to subsidize those farmers to keep growing things that might be a little more difficult and less profitable to grow, but
Absolutely.
are healthier. And what, Don, what you're saying is this is a multi-generational thing.
Yeah.
It's not just that we might get sick from that particular feed we get, but we might pass this on to multiple generations where we become intolerant and our health breaks down. So this is
Yeah.
sort of like, you know, a global residual change in the gene pool that will affect all humans.
That's right,
Yeah.
for generations to come.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what we're up against.
Yeah, and you know, we can make a difference right now. As I tell, every time I give a talk, I say, if you want to have good food, vote with your dollars. Buy good food, cook good food, teach your children to love good food.
Right.
From time to time, like we do some work with Mother's News Magazine, and one of the things they do is they'll take some variety that we or some other heirloom company offers and do, you know, analysis like the Floriani Flint corn that has more protein, you know, available there, just eating the same thing that you would otherwise. And, you know, some of the tomatoes, they can't produce as many tomatoes per plant, but you have more nutrients in each one that you
So
eat.
we got to eat closer to the farm.
Yeah, because people don't even like to buy them when they're perfect, you know, in a market. They think, well, I'm going to bring them home and have them in
How
3
long will this
days.
last?
Yeah,
Will it last 2 weeks?
yeah,
It's like it's fresh lettuce. It'll last 10 minutes if you leave it in your 90-degree car.
yep.
You know, if you don't eat it before you leave it in the car, you've lost it.
Yeah.
But that's what people want it to be, like a TV dinner. They can pull it out 6 months later and push a button and it's
Yeah,
food.
I tell them if they wanted to keep, get some roots.
Well, now we're worried about the potatoes because
Yeah.
they, you know, maybe those
Yeah.
skins are set by an herbicide kill. And
Yeah. Well, that's why you ought to get winter CSA going in your local area.
Yeah. Our children are going to have trouble we don't even recognize because we've contaminated the food supply with these transgenic materials. They're going to cross. Whether you get sued or not for it, pretty soon you're not going to have any heirloom varieties that are uncontaminated.
This is definitely one of the things with, you know, joining these various lawsuits. They say we feel like you need to go after it 3 ways. Sue them whenever you can. Why not? Maybe we'll win one.
especially
And
when
then
you
the
can't
other is lobby as much as you can, because as I say, you might not think it makes that much difference, but I can remember being a child and being drugged by my grandmother down the streets to some march, you know, and she said, nothing may happen in your lifetime, but you are not going to have a better future if something doesn't. So I'm going to take you here. You're going to walk with me. And then when enough people were, you know, made aware of the bad things that are happening, and for us, it's important to let them know about these risks to their health, to their children's health, to the health of our animals, so that people will join in our fight. And we have nothing to lose except the life that we want for ourselves. So we better fight for it. And then we're spending money. Spend your money in the right way.
Yeah.
All of these things together might prevail.
Somehow we've got to make it so that the farmers doing the right thing make enough money that they become financially competitive with the corporations that aren't.
Well, this is, you know, what started out when people started with CSAs. It was one way of saying, I care enough about this food that I'm going to pay my farmer a reasonable amount for that food. And the more that you tell people that being a good person that is trying to build this life means allocating more of your resources to food is important. And I feel like sometimes that we emphasize that. Well, there are young people out there doing incredible things. You guys know about Farm Hack. I love it when people who have technical backgrounds say, I want to farm and I want to do it a little bit easier on my back. And so they're reinventing how you can farm on a few acres and making it more like we can have more farmers into the future. All we need to do is support them so that they don't go broke. Right. It's very challenging.
So what we can do as individuals is join a CSA, know our farmer, buy local, and start spending our money in that way.
Absolutely. I mean, it is, the thing that they've said all along, act locally first. You have the most control there. And of course, continue to take these larger actions. But the thing that you can do, and nobody else can stop you from doing, is where you buy your food, how you prepare your food, what you teach your children.
We need the public to be aware. Get rid of the apathy, start voting with your dollars, and recognize that you're poisoning yourself if you don't spend more and get the true cost of good food.
I wanted to mention two other websites that have addressed these issues quite often. One is OSCADA, the Organic Seed Growers and Trade Association, which are lead plaintiffs in our lawsuit. And you just can keep up to date with what's going on.
PubPat too.
And then PubPat, but it's more of a total legal thing there, but they do tell you about the literal things on the lawsuit. And then the Organic Seed Alliance, that just gives you more about all of these issues around seeds and how to try to maintain a pure seed source. And where to go and find the position of the week, because you might as well. It doesn't take very much time to add that to your list of what you should do.
Well, there you have it. The real reason why you need to buy from your local farmer at the farmer's market, not finding the cheapest stuff you can at the superstores, and support healthy food for you and future generations. The way that you can support local farms, join a CSA, buy from your local farmer, go to the local farmer's market to avoid modified materials and patented genes in your food. This program is a production of Meet the Farmer TV, LLC, in association with Planet Earth Diversified, Melly Productions, and Leslie P. Jenkins Photography and Graphic Design.